podcast. This week we are sponsored by MPB. Now in today's episode, we're just going to be here for a very brief amount of time. So I'm actually going to cut to an interview with Alex Kilbee. For those who don't know, is from a YouTube channel called The Photographic Eye. And he's kind of the anti-YouTube photography channel, I guess. He's the opposite of everything else. He just talks about the art of photography, the creativity of photography, and everything but cameras. So very interesting to talk to. It's a channel I actually watch quite a lot. There's not many photography channels I watch. Do you watch many photography channels?
Not anymore.
No, I kind of went off them all a bit, I guess. But I don't know. I don't know if that's photography channels or just my interests.
I mean, the only person I tend to sort of watch on the reg now is a good old friend, Mr. Philip Bloom.
Yeah, see, I never got into his videos. I think it's just more moving image, though. It's not really my cup of tea. But yeah. But anyway, Alex's channel is one you should definitely check out. He comes from do you know what? I'm not going to ruin it because we're going to ask all these questions anyway. But I guess the main part of this episode is just talking about everything that isn't the kit, which, to be honest, is 99.9% of photography. We've got like, I don't know, what, 10 grand's worth of podcasting kit out here? Probably. I'm guessing. Or probably more, actually, looking at the computers and lights. But all that really matters is what we say.
Correct. To
a point. Like, if this isn't interesting, then you're not interested. It doesn't matter how good the audio is, how good the lighting is, how good the cameras are. If what we say isn't of interest, it's rubbish. And if the photograph you take isn't of interest, it's rubbish. It is the short of it.
Yeah, it could be technically great.
Yep.
In terms of, focus, sharpness, and etc.
All that good stuff.
But is it interesting?
Exactly. So that's what we're going to discuss today. But what I want to do first, because I'm going to give you a bit of a spoiler here, Alex used to be a portrait photographer. He used to run a studio, ran it for years. And thanks to our sponsors, and as you know, I like to go into MPB and I like to do a spot of shopping. And this week, it's only a short one. I've just done 2 shopping baskets. And I'm pretty chuffed with what I've found. So what I want to do here is show you what you could have to start up a portrait business. It could be a location one, it could be a studio one, whatever it may be. We're not going to go into lights and all the rest of it. I just want to show you the camera kit because I think you'll be amazed at what you can get at such a low price point today. Obviously I've not looked at cameras much in years, so whenever I see new camera kit for sale, I'm like, wow, you can get this just for that much money. It's
crazy. Some things that were literally unobtainable a few years back.
Oh, I know.
And now so reasonably priced.
It's insane. It's the same with my favourite era of cars is the early 2000s. Before, and this is awful, before the health and safety came in, and you could still get the flippy up lights just up until 2001, I think it was.
Yeah, but then obviously pedestrians became more important than vehicles. So.
Yeah, I know. Who would have thought pedestrians would be more important than aesthetic?
I mean, I would still argue I'd rather be hit by an early noughties Jap tuner with pop-up headlights than a Volvo from the 1980s.
Oh, yeah, like a shoebox smashing in the side.
It's literally like being hit by a Lego brick. That's not going to end well. Just the amount of blunt force trauma.
But yes, this now lets me lust after cameras I wanted when I was starting out that I could never afford. Now, my mate Hit, who we're trying desperately to get onto this podcast, had all of these lenses in my first basket. Now, this here is £3,500 or £3,496. This is a portrait setup. I've actually used this from rental houses. Never owned all of this because I couldn't afford it. And now that I can,
I'll be with you on the shoots where you're using at least 2 of those lenses.
But there we go. So here we go. This is the Canon 5DSR, which obviously I did own. And I actually think these have held their value really well, 1,200.
That's surprising, honestly.
Do you know how much I got for mine when I sold mine?
Oh, was it pre or post end of the world?
Post. And after heavy use, I got 400 per camera. And that wasn't selling them to somebody, that was direct, because that's all I'd finished them. There's no life left in them. Yeah. They were paperweights by the time I was done, I think. But yeah, I'd have got more trading into MPB, probably, but I don't know why I didn't. Why didn't I?
Schoolboy error.
It would have been less hassle as well. I got conned by one person on the platform I used. They said they didn't want it anymore, returned it and sent back a shoe. I was like, great. But luckily, they weren't smart enough to make sure the two weights were the same, and mine was weighed by Royal Mail on the way out. So, but I had to get the police. Anyway, I digress. Let's dive into this. So, over on the MPB platform, you can get the 5DSR, the 35 1.4 Mark II. This is the most expensive lens on here. The Mark 1 is ample. The Sigma is what I use, actually. It's what I've always used. I've had it since the day it came out. It's the one bit of kit I've bought brand new and used forever. And so I highly recommend that. But this one here was like groundbreakingly good. The 50-1.2, which is an iconic lens in terms of its aesthetic and look. And that's I'm sure it was like thousands when it came out.
Oh, it was.
I mean, and obviously what you're going to do, the first photograph everyone takes is a shot of their keyboard at f1.2. So, look at the shutter depth. And then obviously you start shooting at f4 like you're supposed to. And the 85mm 1.2 Mark II, which is but you don't want the Mark 1, because that one, the focus is focused by wire. And I don't know how long this wire is, but it'd be going a long time.
I mean, it was moving a lot of glass.
It is a big chunk of glass in that H5. It's beautiful. But all of this, that's less than the price of a brand new mirrorless camera.
Yeah, I mean, your 5D Mark IIs were $4,000 brand new.
Yeah, geez, they were expensive.
And now you've got all of that in a bag of potato chips, and look how much better all of that will be than just a camera body with no lens.
I know. And the 5DSR, we still shot worldwide campaigns on it this year. Like, nobody batted an eyelid. Now, this is a great deal, but it's still $3,500, which, let's be honest, when I was starting out, my entire camera kit probably cost $1,000 all in. So for 1,146, this will do everything pretty much up to worldwide ad campaign level. Like, if you're not shooting worldwide ad campaigns, this is enough. And this is the 5D Mark III, which has better autofocus than my favourite Mark II. Dual card slots, which apparently is a big deal, but I tether say it's irrelevant. You can't do both.
For movie shooters, it's the most evolved version of Magic Lantern. It's the perfect camera.
Which is the one where you kind of crack the camera and put its own thingy in it, which we've done on a few of mine, haven't we?
Yeah.
Varying degrees of success.
Again, just because the tools existed within the camera, but the Canon didn't want you to use them.
They did not.
They wanted to protect the cinema line, so they basically nerfed their own product, for want of a better way of describing it. But the camera was capable of shooting full RAW.
Full everything. All in.
Continuous, with all the toys.
Yeah.
And as you say, the focus system, it was the first one where you could use a 5D properly for sports. You didn't have to buy 1DX anymore.
Yeah, because they were expensive. But there we go. So the 5D Mark III, perfectly capable. I think it has all the functionality of the 5DS. I think it's the same body, same audio. Like, it seems the same. Anyway, brilliant body, bomb-proof. You could literally, if someone's mugging you, it is a weapon in disguise. And then we've got the Canon EF35 f2 IS USM. These are the gold ring lenses. I've never used it, can't comment on it, but if it's anything like the others, it's probably a pretty safe bet. I had the 28 1.8 instead because I preferred a wider lens. The 85 1.8, which is the lens that literally lived on my camera.
Yeah, I still own that lens, although I just don't use it anymore.
I think I gave mine to somebody. I can't remember. I definitely don't have it anymore.
It's the only gold ring one I've ever owned.
It is a beautiful lens. And again, so me and Hitz used to shoot side by side. He'd have the 1.2 and I'd have the 1.8 85. And I don't think you could tell the difference.
Unless you're shooting it below 1.8.
Yeah.
I would go as far as to say that 1.8 and above, the 1.8 is the better lens.
Focus is much faster as well.
Focus is faster.
Still a big bit of glass, though, but it doesn't move.
As I found out when I was a music photographer shooting predominantly on dark stages.
Yeah, not ideal for that.
That thing does not focus quickly at all.
But this is the lens I shot my girlfriend's portrait on the day I met her, which is a book cover, but a commercial book cover. Everyone's like, I don't think you shot books. I don't. Not unless there's a big brand fronting it. This is fronted by Iceland. So that's where the money came from.
Yeah.
So they actually had budget. We shot that f4, beautiful portrait. If I remember while I was watching through this, I'll try and drag it onto the screen. And we used 5D Mark II.
Yep.
And Bowens lights, 2 500-watt Bowens lights. I think we had to get an Uber there because I believe this was one of those, it was a disaster job where someone else had messed up their portraits for the cover. And I think Paul and I were in the pub when it was confirmed.
Yeah, it was emergency last-minute damage limitation, wasn't it? That's what that shoot ended up being.
Yes, and to be honest, this is one of my better portraits thing I've taken because we couldn't take all the kit because we had to get it in an Uber.
Yeah, and sometimes you've got to run what you brung.
Exactly. And then the 51.4 USM. Now, the 51.4 image quality wise, considerably better than the 1.8. However, sometimes the focus goes gritty.
Yeah.
I think when I was shooting heavily, I'd go through one a year, but it's 130 quid. Go through one a year.
It just seems like it just seems peanuts. I mean, you're talking probably over 100 quid now for the nifty 50, the 1.8. It's like, why would you buy a new one of those when you could buy that?
This is right. So you can buy a brand new 1.8, and even the mount on the back of the bayonet is plastic.
Fantastic.
Plastic bayonet.
Yeah.
It's got a metal bayonet. It's got proper autofocus. It's got focus override. And if you're doing video, you couldn't use the 1.8 because the motor was so loud, you couldn't get audio at the same time.
The motor was horrific. And more importantly, you only had the tiniest little ring on the end to focus it.
The focus ring was like the filter thing. Yeah. Well, this is like a proper lens. And here's a pro tip. If you're using cheaper kit, buy the lens hood. Look how much pro this does with the lens hood on it without it.
I mean, that should be the takeaway from all of these. If in doubt, put a lens hood on it. You look immediately more pro.
Like lens hood, battery grip.
Yeah.
That's your like, I know it shouldn't matter, but let's be honest, it does.
Well, let's face it, none of us could afford a 1DX, but we all wanted one. So we put battery grips on all our cameras to make it look more like a baby one.
So I always wanted the 1DS Mark III. That was the dream camera. Because who had it? Joey L had one. And he was big when I started in photography. I don't know what he does nowadays. I assume he's still shooting. But different genres, we don't really cross paths. But yeah, I wanted one because he had it. That was it. There's no other rush. I didn't know the specs. Yeah. I was like, he's got a 1DS Mark III. I need a 1DS Mark III, but I had to make do with it at the time of 50D.
Well, you see, when I got into photography, like some 11 years ago, the 1DX was the hype camera.
Yeah.
It was freshly released. It was shooting a million frames a minute. The autofocus never missed anything.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, no, this is it.
This is the end of photography.
And then you look at what it costs, I'm like, I can't afford that.
Yeah, they're only a couple £100 now, though.
Yeah, but like back then, we
should get ourselves one each.
It was a lot. Oh man,
a little Christmas present, one each.
And just take the podcast on tour and like both shooting 1DXs.
Yeah, what are we going to do with them?
Well, turn up a gig can be really obnoxious and shoots 1,000 frames a second. There's a machine gun in it for the full 3 tracks. That's what everybody did when they had them back then.
Absolutely. Now that we've ranted about gear for long enough, let's dive into this interview with Alex. It's a long one today. We discuss a lot. We cover a lot of ground.
Grab a cuppa and some snacks. And
absolutely. And let's dive in.
Really? You choose now. What are you doing? You can't dig the concrete.
So I'm joined here now by Alex from the Photographic Eye. Hello, Alex.
How's it, man? How you doing?
I'm very good. Thank you. How are you?
I'm all good. Just sitting here enjoying the doggy.
Yeah, Teddy's just beneath us here, causing absolute carnage as always. But we'll battle through, and we'll get Rob to do some like nice noise cancellation in post.
Someday, I'm sure there's an anti-dog filter.
There definitely is. We've got one set up ready for him. It even takes out the barking. Firstly, thank you for coming on.
It's my pleasure. He says, like, I'll just muffle my mic. Yeah. Yes, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So I've got some things I want to talk about today. We've asked the community for some questions, and obviously I've prioritised my own questions over that because curiosity.
Yeah.
And I was going to try and play it off as the community's questions, but if anyone checks, they'll know they're not.
Just say, this is a community. Your community of
the community of me and Teddy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what I'd like to, we'll just dive straight into it, I guess.
Sure.
We both do the same 2 jobs. So both of us have a YouTube channel and education platform, and both of us do photography. But I would say probably in both instances, despite, I mean, if our kids went into school and said, what does your dad do? They'd say, well, he has a YouTube channel and does photography. But we do 2 very different things in both ones. Both ways. So I guess starting with the YouTube side of things, as we're here on YouTube, explain your channel. What does it do? Why does it exist?
Keeps me busy.
Keeps you out of trouble, yeah.
It exists. I think if I go way back to the beginning of when I started the channel, in my experiences of being a family portrait photographer, I'd come across a lot of people who'd come into photography as a second career. So they'd come from IT or banking or something. And when I spoke with them, it was, and I'm going to use the word distressing, because it was kind of distressing, that they didn't really know much about the broader aspects of photography. Like they knew how to use a camera and they knew how to sell prints and frame things. But the art and the history of photography, there was a deficiency there, and I use that word. I use that word purposefully because I think if you want to improve as a photographer, then looking at the history of photography, looking at the work of other people's output, what have you, goes so far to helping you grow your own talents.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to do next if you don't know what's come before.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I thought with the photographic eye, I will address that. I'll share some of my experiences with photography. And it started off, I just wanted to really talk about the history of photography, about famous photographers. And one day I was at a loss of anything to actually talk about. And so I just talked about my experiences at photography school. And that sort of kickstarted the idea of actually sharing my experiences of learning about photography over 30 odd years or so that I've been involved. And so I never really thought about it as a purely educational, helping people type of channel. It's more like, I like photographs, I'm going to show you some and we'll talk about it. And over time, it's morphed into acting more as a bit of a guide to people who are interested to say, do you know, if you like this kind of stuff, then here's some other stuff they'll like. You know, when you go on Amazon and you get into music and they say, if you like Led Zeppelin, you might like Black Sabbath or what have you. And I see it's kind of, is that sort of role. It's more of a guide.
So when you start, like, I think a lot of people, perhaps naively, and I'm not sure whether I'm supposed to discuss this or not, don't realize that YouTube is also a business. Now, I don't know how you got into it. Did you assume that you'd become a professional YouTuber when you started? Was that like, because I know some people are like, I'm going to be a YouTuber. That's my plan. What was yours? Was it, I'm going to do this, or was it just...
It was, I think it was more like I'd been aware of Ted Forbes for a while.
Yep.
So the art of photography, I think he'd been around for, this is 2020, so 4 or 5 years, something like that. And I'd enjoyed his content. And I didn't get into YouTube thinking I'm going to be some sort of famous YouTuber. I thought, this feels like it's a moment where if I don't make this channel that I've been thinking about, somebody else is going to.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to kick myself. So that was kind of really my sort of motivation. It was a kind of a broad thing of like, maybe I'll get monetized down the road, but I hadn't really approached it as...
There's no business plan.
No, there was no business plan. It was like everything I've done.
Yeah. We'll start and see.
We'll just do, just begin at the beginning. And so over time, obviously that's changed. But YouTube ultimately is a business.
Yes.
And you have to approach it that way.
Yeah, and I think one of the Teddy just jumps over the table. Big misconceptions here is like, so I get people being like, oh well, just do it for fun. It's like, yeah, but I've got kids at home. I can't just go and do something for fun and not make money because I've got to justify not being there, or not being present at least.
I think there's a lot of problems, especially with the creative field. Like, I don't think the same argument that, oh, this is a passion, so you should be doing it because of the passion.
Yeah.
Like if we were talking about meta ads, I don't think anybody would level the criticism at the channel going, you're passionate about meta ads, so just do it, man.
Yeah. You're passionate about drop shipping.
So there is an element to that. But I think certainly the way that YouTube is set up, because it is a open platform that anybody can just start with, there is a misconception, I think, for a lot of people that it is just for the lols.
Yeah.
That you're just there because I enjoy this. And ultimately, if I didn't need an income, if I was independently wealthy, I probably would still make them.
Yeah, it's interesting, that is, because I was having this conversation with my girlfriend and she was saying, what are you going to do when you've got enough money? And I was like,
it's never enough.
Well, there's that as well. Thanks. Teddy eats most of my money. But I was just like, well, I'll just keep doing the same.
Yeah.
Like, I'll keep shooting. I'll perhaps say no to more clients. I wouldn't have to take on sponsors for the YouTube channel or just do whatever I wanted. But the same, I got into YouTube. I saw a video online about food styling hacks and everyone was going mad for it. And I was like, well, this is completely fictitious and it's getting millions of views. Like, that's just not how it works. So I made one video and then I was like, a month or so later, I was like, oh, I'll make another one. And it was probably not until a year in that I went, actually, this could be a business as well. And I have a habit of turning hobbies into companies. It's like my toxic trait. It's like, well, I like this. Let's start a company.
Yeah, so the worst thing you could do with a hobby.
Yeah, it's like, everyone's like, how do you end up being a photographer? Well, I had a hobby, I really enjoyed it, and then I monetized it.
Yes.
But no, and again, your channel is very different to, I mean, Ted Forbes is probably the nearest in terms of type of videos I'm aware of where it's not talking about either how to take a photo or what this camera does. I don't know many other channels. Maybe I'm missing them.
There's a couple. So it's obviously Ted Forbes, and he's usually the OG, but also he kind of dabbles into a lot of talking about gear and what have you. But it's in sort of a broader sense. There is Tatiana Hopper, so T Hopper.
Oh, I don't know that channel. There we go. I've got
there we go. So T Hopper. So she got started, I think, about a year before I did. So when I went online and looked specifically for videos about sort of the art of photography, she popped up. She was talking about photographers. So she and latterly she's been, I think, talking also about sort of movie directors and things. So she does some similar, and there's some scattered around, but there is a definite distinction. I think there's three types of broad content for photography on YouTube. There's the gear stuff.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to review some gears or what have you. Then there are channels that are more, this is a tutorial, how to make your picture sharp. So press that button there and make a picture sharp. You know, that kind of thing. So they're very much like, here is a very technical aspect. I'm going to use one of those lights, what have you. Show you how to use that. So I think what most people call tutorials. And then there's probably, I don't particularly like the web, but it seems to fit philosophical talks about photography. So that would be kind of myself. Sean Tucker falls into that. But then again, also Sean Tucker does, there's that practical element as well. Because, you know, he does talk about some actually doing things. And so it's, there's these three buckets. And it's, unfortunately, the one that I'm in, I feel the most sort of, I was going to say vacuous is probably the wrong word. But it's
a lot of scope.
Yeah, it's also the least, it's the hardest one to pin down.
Yes.
Because what's the benefit of doing it? Whereas obviously your background, you come from a commercial background, you know, and you offer a different perspective because there may be people who are interested in getting into commercial photography.
Yeah, mine's a very easy sell in terms of finding an audience. Like, do you want to shoot adverts? Yes. Yeah. Cool. I can help. But yeah, going like understanding the importance of knowing like why Eggleston went to colour film and it's hard to go, I need to learn that to be a photographer.
Yes.
I need to learn how to do lighting. Yes, that's an obvious, like, I'm going to go and learn that. But I need to understand what came before. I think to the type of person who's drawn to photography as a majority is a difficult sell. I actually go as far as saying, though, that the type of people who are successful in photography is an easy sell to them. I'd say, like, everyone I know who's a great photographer, whenever we pull out a brief, they'll be able to name like 15 historical references where this brief has come from.
Yes.
And anybody who watches predominantly gear channels will go, it uses a parabolic light. I'm like, great. Why? Why?
Because I bought one other time. I can't use it. I think there is that distinction. And obviously photography has two aspects. It has an artistic side, it also has a technical side.
Yeah.
And the technical side, it's safe, it's welcoming, it's fairly easy to understand.
And there's a right and wrong answer.
For the most part. Yes. Yeah. So people can pick up a camera and go, I'm really interested in stuff, and spend a long time just thinking about the technical side of things and feel comfortable and happy in that environment. But there's always going to be more people who want to, I think, explore the slightly more creative aspect of photography. But that's a far smaller group.
Yes. Yeah.
People.
It's interesting though, on a slight tangent here, but from the photographers I work with as one-to-ones, there has been 3 of them now who got a camera and within 2 years had an agent and shot worldwide campaigns like Nike, Adidas, people like that. And all 3 of them had a massive understanding of the context of photography as an art form and fashion as an art form. And all 3 of them owned micro 4/3 cameras. The same as actually a Fuji camera, which has nothing to do with sponsorship. It was like they all had this particular micro 4/3 Fuji camera they all bought because it had a certain look to it, like a film camera.
Okay.
They didn't know how to use lights. They didn't know how. I had to explain to them the relationship between aperture, ISO, and shutter speed because they didn't know it, even though they just shot a worldwide campaign.
Yeah.
But they understood the creative side so well, and getting someone like that from 0 to worldwide campaign is so much easier than getting somebody who knows everything about the tech and nothing about what you talk about on your channel. It's so much harder to go to them. It's like, great, you've done all the tech there, but it sucks. And to understand why it sucks, you need to understand what you talk about on your channel.
But that's also, it is something that obviously comes up in lots of discussion, not just in YouTube, but back in the day when I was doing portrait photography, you'd get people come in and they go, but everything about this picture is good. Technically. Yeah. Like it's exposed, it's in focus, what have you. Why aren't they buying this? And you say, well, there's a whole bunch of other reasons why. Your sales process might be a bit blur. The way that you present yourself, the clothes that you wear, right? All these kind of things. But they didn't want to see that because they felt the photography was the best, as far as they were concerned, that it could be.
Yeah.
And it is hard to take those people and say, look, if you change it up, if you put all the other stuff to one side a minute, but then you start thinking about not just the technical stuff, but the way that you are photographing these kids, the way that you're photographing the family, the way that the lighting is, the mood that you're giving, all these aspects play such a huge role in how people interpret your photographs. And yet they are something you've ever spent time thinking about.
Yeah. And I think, like you say, it's going from what you did as your, again, aside from YouTube, for the family portrait business and that side of things, it's the exact same thing. What I do, the commercial world, there must be 100 family portrait photographers who can do pretty much the same good job as a photographer. But out of those 100, how many of them are successful?
Oh, that's where marketing comes in.
Exactly. But it's the same in my work. Like, loads of people can do what I do. But it comes down to, does the client like you as a person? And that's one of the hardest things to help somebody with. If they turn up, they're like, I've got all of this, I can do this, I do all the marketing. I'm like, but people do not like you. Like I've had to have that conversation with people before. It's like, it's awkward. I'm like, you're giving them the ick. You need to like, you stop wearing socks and sandals and set. Like,
all the personality of a fitted kitchen. And it's like,
and then like sales, marketing, all these things matter. What you wear on set or in your studio, what your studio looks like. All these things that people don't think about have a huge impact on whether you're successful or not.
Absolutely. And if you bring that back into sort of like, the visual, the aesthetic of a photograph, people, I think often when they're looking at images and you hear them talk and what have you, often, especially for people who are slightly newer, they'll come back to things like exposure, composition. Is it sharp? Is that little thing in the background? So they're very technically orientated. And they're looking for, that's why the photograph does or doesn't work.
Yes.
And they're not looking at it in a broader context of the way that I interpret a photograph is very different to yours. Not least because obviously we have different backgrounds, we have different aesthetic tastes, but also we react to what the photographers either put in or omitted to include in that photograph. And if people aren't aware of how these things interact with somebody, then they can't use them.
Yeah.
Right. For example, there's off shot here, there's a bunch of background rolls on the wall. They're ranging from black to blue with some reds and yellows. Whichever one of those you put behind somebody, it can be the same bog standard flat picture. It will make people feel different about it.
Yes. And this is a conversation I have with people as well. So I did this macro shot of a sweet once, and it was a pair of red lips. And loads of people are like, oh, I'll go and do that. And they're like, is it good? I'm like, no, why not? You chose the wrong sweet.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean? I was like, it's the wrong one. How do you know? Because it doesn't work.
Yeah. It doesn't feel.
But where's the cultural reference from that suite with that background, with this body of work today that makes this work? Yeah. Like, there has to be some. It's not just go, oh, I've perfectly lit a jammy Dodger biscuit. It's like, why? Why did you choose a jammy Dodger biscuit? Because that matters more than how you lit it.
Absolutely.
What's the context in the photograph? Because that matters as much as the subject. And people are like, well, I've got this portrait. I'm like, yeah, but the model's no good. Well, it's the wrong model. Like, you need to be better at casting, not at lighting.
I don't think people really pay enough attention to that, which is why I started the channel in the first place, is to give people there's some history. The more that you look at work, then the more that you are informed, the more that you get a feel for what works and what doesn't work. If you're looking at people's work online, let's say it's just a general, like a camera club kind of level sort of thing, often that work will be middling in standard. There'll be a huge sort of up and down. But if you go and you find people's work from history and current people who are operating at a consistent level, and you go, I really like that picture, but then why do I like it? Why does it work? And this isn't the same as, people talking about like arty pictures, like Eggleston's photos. So this is why it works. And then you start getting into really sort of deep ideas about photography. And then Eggleston says you're talking nonsense.
Yeah. Like, no, I just like the look of it.
Yeah. But that's the thing. The more that you recognize what works for you in terms of a visual aesthetic that you like the look of, the more that you can then apply that to your own work. And I think, hello, doggy. That's the hallmark of where that transition changes from being a technical photographer to being somebody who then is also happy to say, I want to improve, and I it's not about, oh, that thing's out of focus or there's a wrong f-stop. It's now more like, why doesn't this land with you?
So I always use, do you know the Avedon series, the Americans?
Yeah.
The Americas, whatever it's called. Those portraits on the white seamless.
The American West.
The American West. It just shows my lack of culture here. But I always use that.
You told me you were a professional.
Well, no. Professional with a lot of help.
Now somebody's going to go in the comments and say it's not that. It's in the American West or something. Anyway, yeah.
But so
it's the people with the white sheets.
There's a cowboy and there's the white back. Like, it is photographically, if you look at it from a photographer's point of view, anybody could shoot it. But first of all, he chose the right people to photograph, which the curation of those people that he shot on the day and how he posed them is key. But then in the edit, he got rid of a lot of them. There's a lot of them which, hi Ted, you want to have a quick chat on this?
He's got a point about everything. He's like, evidence a hack. He doesn't know. Right, come
on, off you get. You go and do your thing. You have some fuss. But like, he edited loads of them out. And what you choose in your final edit is also important. Going, well, do you know what? This person's face or this person's look doesn't work with the story I'm trying to tell. Yes, they're from this place. Yes, I did photograph them, but actually they're not in.
Yeah.
Like the edits.
It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting, I think a point is like, usually when people sort of, they reach out to me and say, hey, can I get some feedback? Initially, we'll see like a whole bunch of stuff because they'll put together a little page or something with all of their pictures. And most of the time, it's a whole broad spectrum of pictures.
Yeah. It's like, here's photos.
Here's some pictures of my kids, and here's a dog, and here's, thing. And it's I can see where it's coming from because I've done myself, like when I did weddings and the portraits, there's a tendency to say, if I put out a lot of stuff, the person whose work I would like to get may like one of them. So the more that I show, the more possibility they're going to like one. But if you switch that around and you say, well, then I was starting to talk about marketing, the more that I show them, there's more likelihood they're going to say no.
Yes.
Right. So that's good. But so if you bring that back to, people trying to improve their photography, I don't think it's necessarily, I see where they're coming from. They want to say, this is what I'm capable of. Where are my strengths and my weaknesses? So, okay. So that from that point, it's handy. but they often will then kind of somewhat push back against that there's a justification. If you're looking at somebody's work and you go, well, this picture here doesn't really kind of work. So why have you done this? And they might say, because of X, Y, and Z things. Look at that little thing, or I was here. And they're trying to explain the photograph. And this is exactly why it's difficult to make this leap from a technical thing.
Yeah.
Because they're having to explain. The photograph should explain or give a feeling, not the photographer sitting there next to it with a exposition of the thing.
But that's quite common, I find. I think there's a real again, when people come to you and they're defending their work, but I did it because of this, and this. It's like, yeah, but you just shouldn't have done it. I was like, or like another one is like, oh, this photo would have been great, but where you're standing, it doesn't work. They're like, yeah, but I couldn't get over there to do it. I'm like, well, don't take the photograph, and definitely don't put it in the portfolio. Like, there's that editing process of going, yes, I can take it. Yes, I can do it technically perfectly, but so what? Like, should I press the button? And I think now that we don't shoot film, pressing the button's much easier, much cheaper. You've got like 12.
I'll have it in case.
But
and again, because I'm aware that, say, for example, I think a lot of you, and I'm going to go on a limb, but I think a lot of your audience are people who are looking to become sort of commercial.
Yes, definitely.
Whereas obviously my audience, it's the people who are just, they are passionate about taking photographs, and it is very much a hobby. And this is where it's, again, coming back to this idea of it's difficult to make a distinction. There's a financial, or the possibility of financial reward on your side of the table. And on my side of the table, it's a lot more artsy-fartsy, take better photographs. And so what the hell does better mean?
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because I was speaking with Karen, who's my art buyer. And we're trying, because I know, I've told you, I work as an agent as well on the side, and we're trying to sign 3 more photographers. And I was like, right, Karen, let's just be clear. What are we looking for? And she was like, the most batshit off the wall work we can find. She went, we can't have seen it before. Otherwise, we can't sell it. So bizarrely enough, I'd imagine what most people who follow me are doing is further from what they need, and most people who are following you are doing is closer to what we need now.
And that,
on a flip side of
cool. Yes, because this is I think, again, something that people on my side of the table go, I want to emulate who they think are
the greats.
Great for them, and so they will go, we'll do it this way, we'll do it that way, and they often do come up with quite random ideas about things, and I have to be sort of mindful to sit there and go, okay, that's like a bit of a dead end, or can you improve on that?
Yeah,
can you take that idea and run with it? But oftentimes it's a technical thing that's blocking them, because they've got their idea up here.
Yeah.
But they're not quite sure how to actually manifest it as a photo.
I think it's far better to be that way inclined, because you can get help with the technical. Getting help with an idea is so much harder.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Like, teaching somebody how to have original thoughts is like, so, whoa.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, excuse me. On the Live in Pompeii Pink Floyd album. So it's interspersed with interviews, and there's one section where they're asking Roger Waters about all the synths and technical gubbins that he's got, and he makes this point. He says, if you got 4 people and just plonked them down in front of the kit, he said it would be interesting, but they can't do what we do.
Yeah.
Because you need to have the idea, right? You can't. He said, of course, this is because I think we're going to talk about AI just now.
Yeah.
He says, but the computers can't think for us yet.
Well, yes. Yeah. I'll tell you what, that is I love a good cheesy segue as well. But I think we should go into the AI thing here, because we've been discussing it at length at work. And I was saying earlier, we're out on Wednesday for a lunch, which descended into 1 a.m, me trying to not fall off my chair in a train.
Only because you were tired.
Yeah, definitely wasn't the copious amounts of champagne, wine, and beer.
Commercial photography, yeah. They say it doesn't pay.
Well, I had a meeting at 9 a.m. the following day. I was hanging onto my chair in the meeting. It was a nightmare.
Us artistic people on this side, we just get out of bed whenever. Let the muse strike.
Jeez, I wish do you know what? When I was starting out in photography before I had a family, that's how I was. I'd be like, I didn't have an alarm clock. Now 6 a.m. the alarm goes off. I go downstairs, let the dog out, get the kids ready. It's just it's not the job, it's the family. So we were discussing AI, and there was someone in the corner going, I won't repeat the word they said. So we're out with ad agent, like really big ad agencies. We're out with a huge retouching house as well. And one of the retouchers went, well, we do retouching. Apparently AI is going to ruin retouching. And it was like, I can't see it. He just said, I can't see AI, like none of the AI tools in Adobe are useful. He went, I'm sure hobbyists and amateurs can use them to do quick edits, but at the level we're working at, it's the pen tool, and we're manually going through everything still, like painstakingly doing it, like strand by strand. And it's like, we've still not found any AI tools that help us with the level of work we do with our workflow. And he went, and yes, you can go into AI and go create this image. And he said, but then the client comes in and goes, can you move that 2 centimeters to the left? And at this point, AI is useless. Can you tell it to move that element 2 centimeters to the left? You get a new photograph. Yeah. And of course, that will change at some point. But I mean, the creative directors are the same, but the clients don't know what they want. So how's AI going to help them?
I think when you've touched on a point there, and again, in my experience, so I have two hats here. I have the kind of the photographer hat, but also as a graphic tool, as things to use it, I like to dabble. So I run I run Comfy UI on my. Look at me.
Go for it. We'll edit out the cough, so I'll just leave you in here dying.
It's because I'm talking about AI.
Yeah, there's an allergic reaction to the AI.
So I run. I dabble with AI at home, image generation. So I run Comfy UI, and I play around with it. It's a fun little tool.
Oh, I love playing with AI.
Yeah, it's all kind of cool, and I like technical, computery kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So in that regard, I've got a bit of an insight into it. Not a deep insight, but I think probably deeper than most people.
Yeah.
And interesting enough, we were having a conversation on the TP community on last Wednesday, and we were looking at some photographs of Renee Dijkstra. So she's that Dutch photographer who does the people just very kind of not stilted, just sort of stand there. And we were looking at one picture of a kid in Vondelpark in Amsterdam, and I was asking about the mood that it gave, and a couple of people went, "No, that feels like it's AI." Okay, this photograph was taken in 2003.
Yeah, definitely not AI.
But it was interesting because it's a medium format image that it has fill flash in it, but it's if you know what you're looking for, it's there.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you're looking for, it's not obvious. But their immediate reaction was to go, "This is AI. This is AI. If I can't do it, it's probably AI." And that's been, whereas like 10 years ago, it's all Photoshop.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So in this regard, I think, AI in a broader spectrum, and obviously there are discussions that I think are a lot deeper than we could get into here.
Yeah.
About how AI will change the future of imaging. But it's like, and I hate to use the word Luddite, but this idea of like people raging against a new technology, which is the reason why photography is dying.
Yeah.
Because if you take that argument, you might as well just go back to like the very beginning of photography. So all the daguerreotypists going, I got my thing. And then, sort of, Fox Talbot comes along and then Kodak with their box brownies and stuff. So there's always something that makes it cheaper and easier, more accessible. And I think AI, because it is a visual element, it's easy for people to kind of look at that as an enemy of photography. But it's not photography. AI don't want to make photographs.
No. I always put it back to like, there's some person there sat drawing an advert with pen and paper.
Yeah.
And then someone comes along and goes, "We can photograph that quicker and cheaper."
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, but if you want it to look like a drawing, I'll do it like a drawing. If you want it to look like a photograph, the photographer will do it. And now if you want it to look like AI, the AI artist will do it, the prompt artist. And I mean, even today, like I represent a photographer who shoots only film. And people book him because he shoots film. There is no logical reason in 2024 to shoot exclusively on film. You can recreate the look in post, but they want him because he shoots film. Like there's always, and like, you know, if you wanted a family portrait today, you could get a photograph done for next to nothing from some young kid with a camera, it'll be all right. If you want someone to paint your family portrait, that's pretty expensive nowadays.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas at one point, the photograph would have been more expensive than the drawing.
Absolutely. And the colour photograph, that, you know, if people...
Someone would have died developing it as well.
My parents, I think my parents' generation, if you have colour wedding photographs from it's like, wow, you really pushed the boat. But you know, that thing with her, it's easy to look at it and say, well, it's making everything easier and what have you. And it's always an interesting aspect. It's like nobody now would bat an eyelid if you use autofocus.
Oh, I know.
That's autofocus. You know, this is all autofocus. But 30 years ago, you know, autofocus was like kind of a big, you know, this is a new thing.
Yeah.
Oh,
was it the Canon T90?
Yeah, all this kind of stuff with the little thing. But you know, people would sit there and go, but you know, pros, manual focus.
Because autofocus isn't good enough.
Same with exposures maybe 20 years before that. Yeah. Oh, look, it's got a camera that takes... Why would you do that? Right? Did Ansel Adams... You know, he had a little light meter and doing his thing. That's how a real person takes photographs. And I just think, you know, the AI, it's a step forward. It will bring in interesting aspects to imaging. But as it stands, I think for photographers, certainly hobbyist photographers, it feels like it's a bit of a mountain out of a molehill.
But I don't understand why hobbyist photographers would care.
Because there's a hot button issue.
Because, but like for me, for example, I can understand why I'd be upset. I'm not, but if I was, it's like I might lose my income. You don't even have an income from it. If you want to take a picture, take a picture. If you want to draw doing a handstand with the pencil in your mouth and that's your thing, go and do that. Doesn't matter whether there's a better version or a cheaper version. Just do the thing you enjoy and enjoy doing it, I think.
There's... I think ultimately what it boils down to is that possibly... Look at that. I have no... I'm so on the fence. It's like I'm ready to jump either way. I definitely think possibly, maybe, depending on which way the wind blows, that for some people, it would be, I've spent a lot of time learning X.
Yeah.
Right? So let's put it in like a non-photography. I spent a lot of time learning the drums. Okay. Right. And I'm proud of my ham-fisted drumming. But that's pretty cool. Now something comes along that allows people to make a sound that sounds almost, but not quite, completely unlike drumming. And now I'm really annoyed because I've put on this work and I'm being negated. I'm being swamped by all the people over there who are creating stuff that actually sounds nothing like a drummer. And so I get that point.
Yeah, I think you just have to enjoy the process of learning, though. It's like...
But that's kind of the whole point. It's like if I like taking photographs, and that's why I don't really care. If I were an illustrator and my work was being an illustrator, I would be shitting bricks.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm not, and I don't want to sit at a computer and have to prompt a picture. Because I think there's another thing people don't understand. They just think you've put in photo.
Yeah.
And you just, it's gotten a lot better. But
could you imagine the amount, like, so one of the briefs we get, the amount of detail you'd have to get into the prompt to get it even remotely how the client wants it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I'm not intelligent enough to ever be able to write a prompt so good. and the thing, and like I said from before, that's what the client thinks they want. And we all know when a client comes in, they tell you what they want. You go, cool. I know what you actually want from what you said you want. They're two different things, but as the photographer, It's like, did you shoot weddings back in the day?
I did, yeah.
People go, we just want candid photos. Yeah, cool.
No, they don't.
Let me know what formals you want as well. Sure, we'll do. It's like, you don't want just candid photos. You want some candid photos.
I want unposed family pictures.
Yeah, no, you don't.
Yeah, so what you mean is you want to be spontaneous.
Yes.
Okay, be spontaneous.
Yes.
So the kids over there,
yeah,
you're over there. So you need to be posed. Yeah, look, I understand there's some heated feelings around AI. For the majority of people, certainly on my side of the fence, I think they are slightly overblown. Because we take pictures because we like taking pictures.
Yeah.
Right. One could say, do you know what? But Alex, maybe if you want to sell your arty-farty pictures, then you have to compete against a flood of AI. Okay. If people want to put AI pictures on their wall, go for it. I have never bought a piece of art in Dunelm or something like that to put on the wall, right? But there are people who do want to do it. And there are people who will go to an art gallery and buy a painting, etching picture.
Or a banana gaffer taped to the wall for, was it 15 million?
Yeah, the link's in the description box below.
Yeah. I mean, if people are buying that, we're safe from AI.
Yeah. But it's not even like the first time they've done it.
No, I know.
It was the second time. The first one only sold for 100,000.
I just want to know where the banana came from. Like, did they just nip into Asda, or was it like a proper
maybe when you buy it, you get a book about the provenance.
Yeah, I'd want to know that stuff. Yeah. I don't know. AI is a weird one. I think there's a lot. Like, it could become a nightmare. It might not. It's just not time to worry about it yet.
No, I think that's the thing. Yeah, for most people, certainly on my side of the table, the audience, I think. What do you think about AI? He's like,
well, I'd like to say something in that thing you're talking about.
This is where we get AI to make the dog talk.
Yeah, that would be good. We'd go for like Teddy.
Hello, go.
Come and get off. Teddy, off. Good boy. We have to get a thumbnail later, actually. That'd be good. I was going to say that. What do you use AI for? What is your AI usage?
For me,
yeah.
Okay, so work-wise, I use it to spitball ideas.
Yeah, same
for videos. Titles, I found it's very hit and miss because, and this is something also I think people need to understand about AI: junk in, junk out.
Yeah,
it's only as good as the input you give it. So to sit there and go, write me awesome titles.
Oh, it
was like, here's 7 things, because it's taking just a collective knowledge of and it's not necessarily
the average knowledge is not necessarily the average of the collective.
Yeah, and certainly in photography, if I do like a biopic, because I thought maybe I can ask him about some bio because it would speed up research.
Yeah,
the stuff that it came back with, completely wrong.
So that's interesting because I was trying to. When you know that if you do this and do this, it does that.
Yeah.
I was like, I need to know the reason why to explain it in a video because I can't remember why it does it.
Yeah.
I had to put it into Google and the chat GPT comes up at the top of Google now, the AI results. Yeah. And I was reading it, I was thinking, that doesn't sound
Shows how long since I've been using Google.
So Google's useless nowadays.
Yeah,
the first 3 pages are either adverts or AI.
Yeah.
So I went and got a book, opened the book up, and the first 2 pages of Google results were incorrect.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's interesting.
It was something, it was like, I forget, but it was something like give me a list of like photographers who are famous for really good black and white pictures.
Yeah.
And
William Eggleston.
But it just chose people from the past, but before colour film. Because all their pictures are black and white.
Yeah.
And it was saying things like Henry Cartier-Bresson, best known for his work in America. And it's like, okay, so he did, I could see, but it's picked out a random piece of information
and like prioritized
and just ignored everything else. So I think there is an aspect. It's useful. It does speed up a lot of ideas.
Yep.
It does help me when I'm kind of stuck for some things and maybe get a bit of perspective on what have you. But it needs to be treated with, I think, a lot of skepticism. But that's also where experience comes in.
Yes. It's interesting. So I use it for, sometimes I'll have an idea for a YouTube video. And for those who aren't YouTubers, they probably don't realize this, but without a title and a thumbnail, the idea is useless.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, I've got this cool idea. I don't know how to package it. So I'll go, here's my idea for a YouTube video. Give me 20 titles that could work for it. And then I'll go, is there anything in that? Do you know what? This type of title might work for it. Let me try and hash this out a bit.
Yeah.
And then I use it for SEO heavy text on my website for blog posts.
Yeah.
Which I put at the bottom after all the images because no one reads it anyway.
But this kind of somewhat cycles back to, the idea we're talking about, like looking at photographs and exploring the wider world of photography. Because of the nature of my channel, I feature a lot of other photographers' work.
Yes.
So that involves going online and finding their pictures and things of that nature. And I remember, it must have been one of my first videos or something. I went online looking for Cartier-Bresson images. And I got a whole bunch, and I also got another one. And I got an email from a chap called Rui Palha, and he goes, just by the by, at 2 minutes and such seconds, that's my photo. It's not Henry Cartier-Bresson at all. It's me, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I feel like a complete dick. I'm terribly sorry. I made an amendment and the thing. I said, look, I've changed it. I'm terribly sorry. But that was a classic case of just taking something as it stands, as the internet gives it back to you, that it's truth. And that's happened again a couple of times, not to me, but other people have made that mistake. And if you go and search Henry Cartier, that picture still comes up.
Yeah.
There is a photo of Grand Central Station with some light beams coming through it, which is a very stunning picture. But I've seen it attributed to Alfred Stieglitz, Steichen, Dorothy Lang, all sorts of people, right? And it's very difficult for somebody, I think, who's new. This is why we're talking about like with AI, to know that this is not right. And so you have to rely on.
How could you?
Yeah, but in that case, it's like it's a bit tricky. But something in your gut tells you this doesn't feel like that person's picture.
Yeah.
Like a couple of times, and it also happens with Diane Arbus.
Yes, yeah,
So Diane Arbus, there's a picture that is often attributed to her of two twins.
I know exactly. I know the one you mean, yeah.
And you look at it and you go, it doesn't feel quite right. There's something not, and it's a Roger Ballon photo. And you could, so that comes from looking at those pictures. And I think that it just seems like looking at other people's photographs is just like the best thing you could do.
But it's interesting because I went to university in 2005. So the internet was kind of standardized though in our generation. Everyone used it.
Yeah. But
we weren't educated on it, as it were. And I remember being absolutely shocked that we weren't allowed to do research or reference anything on Wikipedia. Because I thought if it's on Wikipedia, it's true.
Yeah.
And if it's on a website, it must be true.
It's the encyclopedia of the internet.
Yeah. And it did this thing where they just pulled up page after page of factually incorrect information on the internet. I went, this isn't true. This isn't true. This isn't true. I went, it could be on like the biggest website in the world. And it still doesn't have to be true. And I remember being really shocked. I was like, oh, so where do we go to get the proper information? They're like, you go to this specific library that has peer-reviewed journals. Yeah. And even then, unless it's in one of these journals, don't take it too seriously.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my word, I had no idea.
It is a very sort of tricky thing. And I just, it's obviously I think that there's a certain amount of, and this is something I've come to appreciate from being online. If I'm going to sit here and talk to somebody.
Yeah.
If I say that, for example, William Eggleston he likes Eggo flapjacks in the morning. That's a statement of fact that could be, he might say, I do not like Eggo. I like porridge because that's an unhealthy food.
Yeah, yeah, it is now.
So that's a statement of fact. So I've tried to steer clear from those going forward. And I don't really do biographies of people anymore. So it's more kind of like I this is how I interpret these pictures.
Yeah. Here's my opinion on these.
I really think that a lot of people would benefit from taking something that they believe, for want of a better word, and saying that's fine, but it is a belief, and that belief may not hold as a truism.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to photography. that you must do this and you must do that, what have you. If your belief system in your photographs says that you always want to use a rule of third setup, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But don't think that every photograph that doesn't do that is crap.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of very regimented thinking amongst photographers. And it's like, well, if it's not this, that's not my belief system. So it is wrong.
It is.
It's like, it must be like that.
Yeah. I mean, you absolutely see this all the time. But, I think that's why I think, I've always encouraged people to look at photographs.
Yes.
And think, why does it work? Why do I feel this way? What can I take from this? Little bits, like being a magpie.
Exactly. It's like, here's what they've got. What can I think about it? What can I do about what I think about it? And how can I apply it? Or often as important, how can I choose to ignore it? How can I decide to go, do you know what? That's what they did. I'm not doing that. Because I think it's much easier as a photographer to go, do you know what? Leibovitz used to do it like this. Let's do what Leibovitz did.
But I sort of interested on that point, right? Because we were talking earlier about, people trying to make improvements in their work. So at the moment, because I don't do any sort of, let's say, paid photography, apart from talking about it, I'm kind of free to do my own thing. And I'm happy also just to discuss my photography with my sort of community and get some feedback with them. And I actually learn a lot more from actually talking to other people's work. But for yourself, how do you improve? What's your process?
That's a very good question. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove that National Geographic that Teddy's is following, and then I'm going to answer it.
How do you get to training?
How do I get better? It is a question we're constantly battling, but currently we just try and have better ideas. There's not a great photography is quite simple. You're like, technically you can only get so good.
Yeah.
And like obviously there's some room for improvement in my technique, but it's diminishing returns. There's like I could buy slightly better kit, but we're like if I want to slightly upgrade my kit, we're talking about probably £150,000 minimum investment for 0.001% improvement. So it's all about concept design. And the concepts have to be something which are fundamentally me. So all of my work, no matter what it is, has to fundamentally be me in a photograph, because then I don't have to compete, because only I am me. Like no one else can do that.
Yeah.
Lots of people can take a good photograph, but to be able to transfer who they are as a person and what their life is up until this point into images is impossible for anyone to compete against. So it's trying to find the things where you can't compete and you can't lose work and you can't have someone be better than you. It's very like everyone's like, oh, be the best you can be. And it's like, yeah, if you do that in photography, you very rarely have to compete for a job, because if they want you, it's you they want, not your fancy camera or your, I don't know, Breeze lighting system you've just invested in or whatever it may be. It's just like, we like you because your work looks like you, and that's what we want.
It's tricky. See, that ethos, like you make that work, so it comes from here.
Yeah,
it has your fingerprints all over it. From your perspective, how do you do that?
Well, this is the really difficult thing. And some people come into photography because they go, I've got this creative idea. I think photography will be the medium that I'll use to explore it. And those people win at life. Like they are instant hits in the industry. Yeah. But they're few and far between. Most people like me, they get a camera and go, this is cool. I've got all these toys and gadgets. And then you're like, this is getting expensive. I better make some money back on this. And you know, I think knowing who you are as a person is difficult. Being able to transfer who you are as a person into an artistic format, where people are like, how do I do that? And I'm like, I don't know. Like if I knew the answer to how to get everybody to be able to do that, I'd be loaded. But it's just one of, I think it's just time, isn't it? Like you keep shooting and you go, do I like this or that? Do I like this or that? And the more you can ignore the tech, the more you can ignore cameras and photography, the easier it is. Like every time I do a shoot, so we're planning one at the moment actually. Like we're going to have a morbidly obese, hairy-chested, bald man in a pair of white Y-fronts going down a ski slope with a pint of beer in his hand. And this idea came to me. Yes, this idea came to me on a train.
I'm not even going to ask.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. and the thing is, someone goes, "Where did the idea come from?" Well, I don't know. Like, who knows? But there's the idea.
Yeah.
And I'm like, right, how do I like stuff to look? I like everything to be as simple as possible.
Yeah.
Like, the more simple I can make an image, the better. So the ski slope is going to be a triangle wedge of whitewood. The sky is going to be a blue background, and the sun will be like a child drawing. You know where they do the corner sun in the piece of A4 paper? Be a block of yellow in the corner. That's it. That's the shot.
Okay.
And that's, and everyone's like, well, what lens, what camera, what lighting? I don't know. Like, that doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. There's no lighting or camera or anything set up that's going to change that from being a good photograph that's going to make me a lot of money. And the reason I know it's going to make me a lot of money is because the cultural references I have from growing up on a council estate mean that I understand what a big, fat, pint-drinking man looks like. I understand their laughable nature when slightly drunk. I understand the irony that nobody I knew ever went skiing unless we went to the Tamworth Dry ski slopes. Like, and all of those things together make the image. And it's hard for any, like, it's little things like the pose I'll have him in, nobody else will have that pose because only I know what that big fat drunk man at the pub's like when you're 6 years old and he's like giving you a bit of lip because he thinks it's funny because you're a kid. Like, and that cheeky look will be in that photograph. Someone else's experience of that would be different to mine. Or that even if they saw the same things, their interpretation of it would be different to mine. And the way they choose to present it would be different. So it's just trying to go, well, what do I want my image to look like? And I won't think about the lighting, the camera settings, or the tech until, the week before when we've got to hire the kit. And I'll be like, right, how are we going to make it look like this? And it'll probably be 1 hour of thought on tech. And the rest of it will all be on creative. It's like, which Y-fronts? We'll have like 50 pairs of different white Y-fronts. Which ones are the right ones? Should they be so tight they're cutting them off, or should they be loose and baggy like they've been worn for years? Do we need to wash them 50 times in a colour wash to get them to slightly lose their colour?
Stained with tea.
Like, but that's that's what makes the difference. It's not, do we use a beauty dish with a grid or not? That doesn't matter. That's going to have no impact on the job being good or not.
There was a phrase that I read in a book somewhere, and I forget the attribution, but it said something along the lines of often people try and find an outlet for their technique.
Yes.
Whereas they should be looking for an outlet and then looking at the technique to achieve that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I find that's, again, maybe the whole photography industry, or the teaching photography industry is to blame for this, because I teach various things and I was taught various things, as opposed to sitting down there and saying, what do you want to do? I say, I want to make really cool black and white pictures like this guy, Anton Corbijn. And they'll go, fine, then you need fast film. Then you need a wide angle lens. You need to not worrying about cropping people's heads off. So those guys say, now this is what you need to work on. Go and do it. And I think, again, it sounds like I keep hammering the point, but when you look at other people's work and you say, how do I do that? Not what camera did they use?
Yeah.
You know, maybe in Corbijn's sense, or some other people, there might be a technical consideration, but oftentimes there isn't.
But the thing is, like, in the commercial world, if there is a technical consideration and I don't know what it is, I hire somebody. Like, that's what a lighting technician's for. You hire the lighting technician, go, can you make it look like this? Yeah. And they're like, yeah, cool, no worries. We'll hire the kids.
Then you get accused of like Annie Leibovitz, who's just a director. Like, she's not
being a director.
She's
I'll take that title.
If I want controversy on my channel, I'll do a video about Annie.
Yeah.
Oh, she's a hack. She doesn't know anything. It's like she's only famous because of the people she photographs. And it's like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she's one of my, I'm not a big fan of her photography, but I'm a big fan of her as a person. Like, I don't actually like her work that much, but I like her. And I like who she is as an artist. I like her work ethic. I like the way she does things. I don't actually like the final result. Whereas on the flip side, love William Eggleston's work. Not so keen on him as an artist in the the way he works, Annie's way of working, I think it's brilliant. I mean, I remember the first time I mentioned that I have a retoucher, everybody going like, well, you're not a real photographer if you don't do the whole thing. I'm like, are you serious? Like, who do you think edits every ad campaign in the world? It's not the photographer.
But it's like back in the day. Like when you had to have prints made.
Yeah, unless you're like developing and printing your own
Avedon didn't make his own prints.
No.
Well,
got a professional printer.
Again, look at me. I'm saying a fact. Avedon did not.
Avedon did not. No. He did have a printer.
No. There was a story about the guy. He said he was promised one of the big prints, and there's been under like legal things for years because Avedon's studio, whatever, says there's no record of this. And he says, but it was just me and Dick. We had a verbal agreement. And it's like, sure.
It's just made one whilst no one was looking. It's like, you've got it all set up.
Don't mind me, I've got this 13-foot print here. Yeah. It's nothing to do with me. But, so speaking of, look at me, it's like I'm trying to run the...
Yeah. It's
so, Scott, thank you for joining me today. So we were... Earlier, I think you mentioned something about camera bags, things we were talking about.
Camera bags?
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yes. I was going, hang on.
Yeah.
See up to you now. It's the productivity is at an all-time low. But, I guess as we're talking about cameras and all the rest of it, we should go on to the what's in your camera bag question.
A lot of dust.
And I should ask you, like, what is... Well, actually, no. Obviously, you don't work as a studio portrait photographer anymore. What was in your camera bag? And what was the year of this?
Okay, so let's say when the line was drawn under the studio in 2020.
Yeah.
So what I had in the studio was, so from an equipment point of view, it was just a 5DS. So it was like a 40 megapixel full.
Yeah, that's what we use it.
And as Canon 85 1.8, so nothing special. That's
what I used as well. Yeah.
Sigma 50mm 1.4 VR and the Sigma 35 1.
So today you could buy all of that secondhand for $2,000, I reckon, couldn't you?
And you know what? Perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Awesome. I could make. In fact, I still have some at home, some 60-inch prints off of that, without having to do any fancy jiggery pokey, upscaling kind of stuff. Absolutely fine. The only time is the autofocus was a bit iffy if I was photographing dogs. So every now and again it would be just a bit.
Yeah, is that because of dogs' eyes being different, whatever the software is looking for? Or?
The black dogs.
Oh yeah.
The black dogs. It was just like
into the abyss.
Yeah, it was like suck it.
Fair enough. Okay.
But no, that was perfectly fine. In terms of lighting, so I had a bit of a dual studio, so similar to you here, there was a lot of daylight came through. Yeah. So I would use natural light for most things, and then copious use of big polystyrene reflectors. Yeah. And then just a couple of Elinchrom, some very old style FX 400s. So heads, nothing special. Again, I think you could pick those up.
You don't need it for that, yeah.
No. And I had 3, 2 of which just lived in the case. Because I had one. So I had one that was attached and had I think it's the 1.3 octa Elinchrom.
Yeah, I know that. That's good. Yeah. Nice.
So nice, sort of simple. It's big enough for a family if I was doing that. And also it's a nice light just for individuals. That was it.
And did you sell it all when you finished, or?
No, the octa is still in my room. Oh, in my YouTube office.
Yeah.
It taunts me.
Yeah.
Just looking at me. No, the LEDs. I had some Elinchrom D lights, which I had bought in an effort to do some very shallow depths of field lit portraits.
Yeah.
Because they could really like pick. Just like tick.
I didn't know this about flashes when I first bought them. I was like, I want to shoot at 1.8 and even at minimum
the
power,
flash is like
f8.
Have the entire sun.
Yeah.
So I bought those just to do that. I recently sold them because, again, they were sitting, and I have no use for them. I got a couple of strip boxes and stuff. But in terms of equipment, that was it. It was nice and it was simple.
Yeah.
And it also meant that I could change setups really quickly.
The door? Hang on. It's the postman. Wait there. Hold that thought. Let me go and see what we've got.
2, 1.
Let's go.
So I have, I had those lights. And the reason I ended up with so little gear is that to do a family photograph, you obviously want to show them a number of images to choose from. And if they're all kind of the same, it's like with very slight differences. the viewing session becomes extremely long.
Yeah.
But also your chances of an actual sale is going down because you're just confusing people. So my setup would be, I had a window over here. So we'll start with the natural light. So often it would be kids by the window, what have you. And that's kind of cool because it just comes in and sort of
yeah.
Then set them up against the wall, and I had a canvas background that sort of sat down.
Or it was like hand painted.
Yeah, hand painted sort of thing. Because I could, like, OnlyFans were like really cool, but I was like,
$5,000.
I looked at that. No, I'll paint one.
Yeah.
So I would have that set up, do some images against that, and then take that down because now I've got a white background.
Yep.
Right. Because it's easier to take it down than it is.
Yeah.
And the single light meant I can just move it around.
Yeah.
The whole time. I can pick it up. I can put it down. It doesn't need to change. And one of the things I can hear some people maybe going, oh, but what about some fill and balancing and that? An octobox that's coming at a sort of a 45-degree angle to them, especially in a small room. The room is white. It's all a reflector.
Yeah.
So it's nice and simple. And so it just made everything flow.
I think simplicity. So like, and again, if you want to make a YouTube video that gets lots of hits about how to do something, use loads of lights.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, even in my work, despite all this kit in here, I use one light for almost everything.
Yeah.
Just one.
I think that's probably one of the biggest issues. Like if I see somebody who's going like, oh, I want to get into using studio lights.
Yeah.
They buy these kits.
That
have like 5 lights.
And they try and use 5.
Yeah. And it's like, dude, 1.
Yeah.
What?
I always tell people, the world looks pretty good outside. Yeah. There's only one light source. Like,
that's the thing.
The sun does a great job. Yeah. Like just replicate that.
It's getting started. So we were talking. So the process was we had to take an image with one light.
Yep.
And I stand to be corrected, but probably unmodified.
Mine at all. Yeah.
Yeah. So just a reflect edition. Boom. And then one light, and then one light on the background, but the background had to have some sort of shadow. So find something and make a shadow on the background with other light. And that seems like, to my memory, as much as we got taught about using lights. Obviously, we then used them.
Yeah, learn as you go.
In terms of like an actual, this is how to use it. Because the guys were saying, like, if you want to start adding in other things, you've already got the basis of using one light for your subject and one light for the background. Now you can add a little bit more. So,
I mean, our ethos here is like everything's one light until there's a problem that needs fixing and the solution is a light. It's never, let's add a light. It's like, oh no, we need a light there.
Yeah.
And then we put a light there. And the problem is, once you add the second light, it creates another problem. And that's when the third light comes out. So our shoots are either one light setups or we've got like 9, 10 lights. And it's just like, oh, for God's sake, this is...
It gets away from you really quickly.
Yeah.
So we used to have like to do like little still life setups because we were sort of taught 2 broad spectrums of photography. So commercial stuff with the idea you become an assistant.
Yeah.
Or doing photojournalism. So 2 kind of weird things. So the commercial side was a lot of, still life stuff. And we would have in the studio bits and bobs. So you'd end up with tiny bits of mirrors.
Oh, yeah. Look, I'm like stuck on a bit of a stick and like...
It's like, I found something that's reflecting. So it does get very complicated really quickly. And I've said to people, if you want to use a light, learn to use the single light beforehand. And again, it was about going off on a tangent. It's often, I won't say the blind leading the blind, but people
exactly what you're saying. Yeah.
Giving poor advice.
Yes.
It's like with lights. You often see like catch lights in the middle of the eye, right, or underneath, and it's because they've set the light up here.
Yeah.
Right, and the sun doesn't come from here. The sun comes
from 45 up, isn't it? Yeah.
And it's little things like that I really wish. And again, that's kind of one of the reasons why I sort of started the channel. Not to necessarily teach people the nuts and bolts of these things, but to at least make them go, do you know what? It's tiny things that make quite a big difference to your pictures.
But it's like, even from a logistical point of view, which is often what we think about with time and money and things like that. So we're sat here doing a podcast. I'm sure most people assume that I've lit this scene. But like, why would I get lights out? I've got massive windows here. We open the blinds up, and whatever we get, I'm on a nice sunny island out
there. Yeah, we're not endless.
I've got lights everywhere in here. I could light this to high heaven.
We should.
Or maybe for the next one. But
like a time lapse. It's like 10 hours later.
Yeah, when Rob and I are in here doing podcasts on the weekend, we shoot them first thing because when it gets darker, we have to get lights out. I can't be bothered to get lights out. Like, there's a massive one here. It's ready to go. Yeah. It doesn't cost me anything either, which is great. But
see, in terms of like the setup that I use for YouTube.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm in my kitchen.
Yeah.
As regular.
I've noticed you've moved room.
Yeah, I'm in the kitchen now.
Where were you?
I was in the lounge.
Yeah. You've been kicked out.
I was like, every time I had to set things up, and so I was in the lounge. Then I went, I'm going to move to my office. So I was in my office for a while.
Yep.
And I thought that's kind of cool, but it also feels. It felt a little less conversational. So it was kind of...
A bit too formal.
Yeah, a little bit too formal. So I thought, I'll go to the kitchen because I have to tidy up in the kitchen. So there's two things. I have to tidy the kitchen up.
Yeah.
That's number one. But also I can't leave all my kit lying around. So it forces me to tidy up all this stuff. So in there, it's dual aspects. There's a window in front of me and there's a French door over here. Now I do have a light that lights me. Because that French door is south facing, and so what happens is the light can change.
Yeah.
So the light will change up and down. So today it's cloudy sky. This is not going to change at all.
Pretty even here.
This would be a really good day for my studio.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like a sign. But if I'm filming, I don't want it jumping around, even though you got like auto ISO.
Yeah,
it just
not the same.
Because also sometimes it's like there'll be like a bright because the sun comes in through the thing, so it makes bright spots. Anyway, so I have that light, and it's just to light my face. There aren't like a separation light with me or something like that.
See, I was asking people recently which angle they prefer in my YouTube videos. Yeah. So I either shoot with the whole studio behind me or sort of from here. And the actual reason why I change location as to where I film is if it's really sunny, I have to artificially light myself, and there's a plug socket on that side of the studio, which is easy to get to. So we shoot this way. Yeah. If it's nice cloudy day like today, we shoot this way.
That's why same in the kitchen, the light is on the same side as the French door. It's not fill because there's no plugs on that side. The kitchen.
And it's the same, like we were doing an educational thing recently and it was a live stream. So I was like, why are you using that modifier? I was like, I was already on the light.
Yeah.
They're like, what? I was like, it's already on the light.
Again, when you talk to people, like I remember years ago, I used to do some mentoring with Mark Cleghorn. So he's a Welsh guy down in Barry. And he was telling us a story about how there was a guy who used to always only light families from, say, the left-hand side. And they were like, well, why is this like a stylistic choice? What's going on here? And he says, no, because my studio is so small, I can only fit the light on this side of the... I've got a choice. And he said the boom arm just happened to fit there because he had like a boom.
I think going back to what you were saying earlier about the things people worry about, like I think I'd got like either a P65, a P45 or a P70 reflector. They're different broncolor reflectors, different sizes. Someone's like, why have you used this one over this one? I was like, it's already on there. Would this one not be better? I was like, maybe. Yeah. But it's a 0.0001% improvement if it is better. Yeah. And I can't be bothered to walk that far for that little improvement of getting, like, it matters so little compared to what people think it does. Like,
but that's where experience comes in though.
Yeah. And late, like, one of my greatest traits is how lazy I am. Like, I could do some really fancy lighting and ruin all my photographs, but I'm so lazy, I'll just leave that one light there.
See, you're talking about like the Octobox, for example. So that's 1.4 meters, whatever it is. Yeah. Right. So it's a fairly large-ish, right? It's not as big as the Brolly back there, but it does stick out the top of the fixture about that much. Now, my studio was roofed the same sort of thing. It was double height volume roof, so I could make it quite high and not have to worry about it. If I were in, say, like in my kitchen, the ceiling's a normal height ceiling. I can't get that light higher. So I might go, do you know what? I actually just need a smaller softbox. it will do the same job, but it does mean I can get it higher.
Yeah, and it doesn't to do with whether you want the light to be slightly harder or slightly softer because of the size of it. It's
but then also
logistically,
it's got to be that size. So it has to be so the trade-off is, but if I'm only shooting single people portraits, that's not a big deal because it's like here, and
the fall off will be fine. Yeah,
it's be absolutely be lovely.
Yeah, I think too many people are not lazy enough. Is that?
the clue to being a great photographer? So just be lazy.
Yeah.
And read lots of books.
I mean, often the lens we shoot on is the lens that was last on the cam. Why are you using a zoom lens today? It was already on it.
Do you know so I mentioned I had the 85, the 50, and the 35. The 35 would come out if it were a multi-generational family.
Yeah.
Okay. So 35, all right, and I would do that because the 50 was just a little bit tight in the studio. The 85, once in a blue moon. I think most of the stuff, if I look back, most of the work would be done on 50 mil.
Yeah,
50 mil, easy. And quite frankly, I say never. I wouldn't really use it wide open.
Well, that I had the same lens, the Sigma Art 50.
Yeah,
we ended up selling it because it was too sharp. I was like, this is a nightmare. Because I had, again, the 5DS. And once you got to like F8, I was like, that's a bit much. I was like, see
the families, yeah, you don't like mums especially.
They're like, really? They don't. Can we just soften it a bit?
They have all these things that sort of go up, and they look at them on the screen and they're just like, no.
Yeah, never touch the clarity slider on the mum. But no, I think, that kit you had back then shooting those portraits with, and I think what people often don't think about, just going back to the kit thing, was like in 25 years' time, you could still be shooting on that kit and it'd still be absolutely good enough.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't change your income in any way whatsoever.
Yeah, no, the glass. Yeah. And okay, so I think you can make an argument about the cameras. But obviously at some point the tech inside them is going to be knackered, and I have a feeling that shutter blade replacements might become tricky.
I don't know. I've still had 5D Mark 1s have shutter replacements done.
Yeah,
we use them for time lapse cameras because some of these shops have got loads of them, and because the cameras are so cheap, people don't repair them. Because there's this weird thing. I can buy another one for less than the repair. It's like, yes, but it might need the repair soon. So just repair the one you've got, and then it's been done, and you've got a longer life on it.
Yeah.
But I mean, we shot a worldwide campaign at the start of the year on the 5DS.
Yeah.
For Johnson & Johnson's for Listerine.
To be honest, the only reason that I got rid of the 5DS was that So when I closed the studio, and I went back into YouTube, or I went back when I started YouTubing seriously, I took quite a break from actually thinking about photography as a job.
Yeah,
because that was one of the reasons why I closed the studio. I had a young son. I was kind of shattered from doing, because family portrait stuff is.
Oh yeah, I'd need every other day off for.
So I'd been in that studio for, I think at that point, about 8 years, and it's a one-man band, and so you're doing everything. And I was just like, I've too much. So I didn't really want to think about it, and there was video capability on the 5DS. It's not great. There's no face tracking on it.
Nope.
So I would have to set up my stool, and then if my wife were home, autofocus on her.
Yeah.
If she wasn't home, and then obviously switch lens to manual, or if she wasn't home, I would have to build like a tower of things to approximate where I was, and then manually focus it. And so that in the videos, I'm very rigid because I'm mindful of not leaning back and forth, right? But what I hadn't taken into account is obviously where that thing was is not necessarily where I ended up sitting. So a lot of the beginning, my ears nicely in focus.
Yeah. So I started on the 5DS as well, because what I was shooting, I was like, it does video, it'll be great.
Yeah.
And one issue was the focus. I used to get a light stand and put it where I was sitting, focus on the light stand, sit, and then move forward.
Yeah.
The other issue is if you get the exposure slightly wrong, is ruined.
Yeah.
There's no fix it in post with a 5DS.
Fortunately, I started off, I was filming in a spare bedroom.
Yeah.
So I would close, everything was closed off. I started with my studio lights and very quickly realized that it doesn't work. Oh, put the modeling lights on. No, you won't, because the modeling lights are just horrible.
Orangey light, yeah. I think I might have done the same for the first, because I didn't have any video lights.
So I had all that kit for a while, and over time, I just basically looked at bits. I was like, I'm not using this. I'll get rid of it.
Yeah.
I'm not using that. Get rid of it. Eventually got to the point where, like, do you know what? I've got the 5DS, which has a reasonable resale value on it. I'm not using its capacity at all, right? And it's no good for the job that I want to do right now. So I traded it actually for Canon 250D.
Right.
So like a little, because I am a Canon fanboy.
Yeah.
So I was like, I've got Canon lenses. Why wouldn't I get a Canon?
Yeah.
body?
Once you know how Canon works, it's easy to sustain.
So I got that, and then I think I wanted to do some more portraits, but I wanted full frame, and I wasn't going to go and rebuy like 5DSs and things like that because it wasn't for work. So I didn't need to make big prints.
Yeah.
So I got a 6D Mark II.
Yeah.
Which is fine. The video annoys me a little bit on it, and its focus is a bit iff. But that might just be my body is a bit.
Yeah. See, my video camera here doesn't have autofocus, so I'm having to rely on a wireless focus system and a little monitor just here to hope that we're in focus. But up until like recently, I didn't have the wireless system, so I could only be an arm's length from the camera because I had to be able to reach the focus ring. So everyone's like, why'd you use that focal length for filming YouTube videos? Like, because it's the only one I can fit myself in while still being able to reach the focus.
35. But I think, we talk about, I don't really talk about gear on the channel.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to talk. Like, so, these days, a lot of my personal work is done on a phone, which I know people are like, oh my God. It's like, because it suits what I do. I like to photograph in an urban environment. I like to photograph architectural things.
Yeah.
And if I'm on a photo walk, so there's a building near Bank. If you walk from Bank down to the Thames, there's like a cut through somewhere. There's a building there. If you go near that building with a DSLR or something that looks like an actual camera, security guards all over you.
Yeah.
Oh, photograph. It's like, I'm a public space. It's like, But if you're there with your phone, nobody bats an eyelid.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you are. Take a picture with your phone. Nobody cares. So it suits me from that regard. It also means I can work quickly, and I can. I think most importantly, just be in the moment.
Yeah.
Be in the moment, not have to think about the technical aspects, because I just press wherever I want it to focus. I might jiggle the exposure a little bit, but apart from that, I'm not fussing with things. I'm just.
I just take a snapshot as if I was any other ordinary non-photographer on a holiday. I'm like, yeah, cool. There's the kids near the pool. Click. Yeah, sort it.
Yeah, So I think I appreciate that there are people who like their gear. They save up, and for them owning a Leica or a Hasselblad or something like that, that's kind of cool because it is a hobby for them.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of part of the thing. I think maybe your experience might be slightly different to mine, but for a long time, I didn't buy gear because it was a new toy. I bought gear because I kind of needed it.
I resent my equipment. I look at I get the lights.
I'll take it off your head.
And I'm like, great. There's what could have been a deposit on a rental empire for housing.
Good.
But no.
You got this. Mustache. I mean,
I was like, get the new camera out. So I'm like, great.
Yeah.
There's a nice fancy luxury car I could have had. But no. Yeah. Everybody wanted high resolution images. So here we are with another new camera.
Yeah.
It drives me. I hate buying kits. It's my least favorite thing. Well, actually, my least favorite thing to buy is hard drives. That really irks me.
It's because they're going up in price.
I think we shoot something close to 40 terabytes a year.
Yeah.
And you need 3 copies of it. There's 120 terabytes of drives every year. Stuff like that, and buying batteries all the time drives me insane. Yeah. But yeah, I don't get any joy from kit.
There's a huge caveat I'm going to put with it. Electronic stuff, not really. right? There's nothing. I don't look at some camera and get lusty and go, "Oh, I have that." Film cameras. Different kettle of fish. Different kettle of fish entirely. So I, gosh, it sounds like a thing. So when I was younger and unemployed, I used to collect Leicas. Because of course.
Yeah, why not? Why not?
This is the days where you could pick up Leicas on like eBay for pennies. Well, not pennies, but they were like cheap anyway.
Not thousands.
No, because everybody's trying to get rid of their film gear. Right. But I like with a film camera, I like the tactile nature of the thing. I like the mechanics of it. So like with my old Hasselblad, that mirror fires, it's clank, 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 clunk, and it's all that, and obviously I appreciate there's a lot of nostalgia element to that. That takes me back to the excitement that I got from photography when I got started.
Yeah.
That you took a picture, especially when I started developing and printing my own work. That the whole thing, you get a bulk loader, you load up some film, you go out and you take pictures, don't know what you've got. Then you go back in the dark and you load up the thing and you do the shaking around bit, and then you're like, oh, look, that sucks, that sucks, that sucks. That whole process. A friend of mine used the word alchemy, and I think it's absolutely, I miss the alchemy of photography. And I think the film cameras are a way of reconnecting.
And one of the everyone's like, oh, why did you buy that big technical camera that's on the stand back there?
Yeah.
I'm like, because I enjoy the knobs and dials. Like, obviously there's some technical reasons why it's good. I could do my job without it for sure, but I like the knobs and dials. I like carefully setting the image size and the focus, then the rise, the fall, the tilt, the shift, the swing, and carefully like going through all these little knobs and all the gears, because it's made in the Netherlands. It's like manufactured within an inch of its life. Yeah. And it's just like, oh, this is so much nicer than just a silent camera with not even with a mirror anymore, making no sound. Like it brings back some of that tactile,
I think and I missed that because it also felt, especially like 35mm, maybe not so much, but medium format and also large format, it felt like you were doing something kind of special.
Yeah, well, I was looking at this the other day. Someone's started 3D printing the adapter plate, because you can get a Mamiya RZ67 D for the digital back, but it needs a special plate, and they're like, you can barely find them anywhere. Yeah. Anyway, someone got one and made a 3D print of it, and now you can buy good 3D prints of the adapter back, so you can put a digital back onto an RZ67. And I've already got RZ67 lenses, so I'm going to buy one of those and have like
people would say to you, if you could put a digital back on a film camera, then you're like, but surely that's kind of missing the point.
It is, but I can then use it at work. So I can use it with film still. You put the film back still on it, just as ordinary. You get your roll back and pop it on. And that the fridge in the office there is full of film. That's all my film in that fridge. So I can still shoot my film on it, but it can be a camera that is my personal camera and my work camera. Because at the moment, my personal cameras are all film cameras and my work cameras are all digital cameras, and there's no crossover. Yeah, like that Fuji with the Cambo never leaves the studio, and that Canon you were picking up earlier very rarely comes into the studio. I can't really remember why it's on that table, but like
you said to spark this conversation.
Yes, fine.
Because I was looking at it earlier and I went, I can't focus, given we were talking about like manual focus.
Yeah.
So I even with the glasses, even with the diopter, not saying, and then it was because the split screen, it doesn't have a split screen focus.
Doesn't even need a battery. I've also got the waist level viewfinder option for it. So you can take the viewfinder off and put the waist level on, which on a 35mm camera, it's quite a novelty. Obviously, like for medium format, you're often looking down, but on a little one like that, it's quite nice. But that comes on the dog walks with me in the morning. That camera does.
I'm thinking about. I was talking with Nick Carver recently. We were talking because he photographs on. So he's similar to you. He does commercial work.
Yeah.
But then he does the film stuff, and we were talking about the process that you go through with film, and obviously 35 was slightly different. When you get into medium format and large format, it is slowing down. It's being more.
Yeah, if I press the shutter now by mistake, that's £7.50.
It's like you start, but I think you start being in the moment a little bit. And you mentioned earlier about having this from inside you.
Yeah.
We talked about how Nick, often people ask him, say, can I come along on a photo shoot with you? or like with the walk, and he's like, he says he's tried it. He does. It's not a thing. He finds it very distracting. And I hadn't really thought about it, but it's the same for me. When I'm out shooting, I don't really want people like if you and I were in London, right? I'm just going, just going to do a photo walk. I'll meet you at some place.
Yeah, we'll go for a beer at some point.
Yeah. I don't really want to walk with you because I'm now spending time with you, and I'm not being in tune with what's going on around. And I think a lot of photographers, because they're often photographing in clusters.
Yes.
With people. That you always like looking, you go to a workshop, everybody's clusters around the person running the workshop, and they're looking at the back of their camera and they're saying, but and then they take exactly the same picture and they very rarely wander off.
Yeah.
And just be in their own, but that's.
It's interesting actually, because I was having this conversation with someone recently because we've got a new assistant we're working with. And often on set, there's like 10 people working, not under me, but like for me.
Yeah.
And there's a very strict rule that only one of them's allowed to talk to me. Because again, I don't want everybody's input and everybody's opinion and because then you get confused.
Yeah.
Start looking at what everyone else is doing.
So basically what you're saying is you're a diva.
A little bit. So
no.
When I signed with my first agent, I got this quick message going, "Oh, what's on your rider?" And I was like, "Oh, I need 48 cans of ginger beer." And I said it as a joke. Anyway, I turned up on the shoot and there was 48 cans of ginger beer. And something I said, like, I turned the ring pull on my can to the side to 90 degrees so I know which can's mine.
Yeah.
And I said, I like the ring pull turned to that. And I thought, this is obvious. Some poor sod had sat there and turned 48 ring pulls at 90 degrees on the right angle.
Did you work for are they still your age?
No, I left them many years ago.
It's like
too embarrassed to go back, I think, more than anything.
The first.
But then with my latest agent, I say my latest agent like I'm going to dump them soon, but no, with my current agent, they were like, oh, you're not too much of a diva to work, because a lot of us are massive divas. I was like, no, of course not. And they're like, brilliant. Should we book your train ticket? I was like, yeah, just make sure it's first class. I was like, you can take it out of my money, but make sure it's first class, because the last thing I want to do is turn up having listened to some champ's phone on the train on the way to the shoot. And then another person was like, oh, what do you want for snacks? Like, oh, I like dried mango. Like, I just eat dried mango whilst I'm shooting. And I was like, cool. And someone else was like, where do you want to go for dinner? I was like, one of these two restaurants only, please. And by the end of it, like, they'd got on a call together and all of them were in the same room. They're like, so, Scott, can we just get this straight? What you'd like is I was like, it sounds elaborate. I went, but it's not much. I'd like some dried mango. The restaurant's not an expensive one. It's just that I know it's quiet. And when I go there afterwards, I want to be in silence.
Yeah.
And I was like, and the first class train ticket, I just have it since COVID. I would only travel first class for work because there's fewer people in the carriage. And it's not because I'm scared of getting COVID. I'm scared of getting sick, because if I get sick, nobody's getting paid. Yeah. And I was like,
see, I just travel first class because I'm a snob.
Well, now it's probably more that nowadays. Yeah. But I was just like, if I get sick,
sure,
what happens to me managing the edit? And like, if the client doesn't want to pay for it, it's fine, I'll pay for it. But yeah, there's definitely a diva-ish moment. And I was like, nowadays I'm a bit less like that. And I will just go like, but I'm happy with the Greggs for lunch. Like, I don't care about fancy catering, but what I want to know is that the food I'm getting is from somewhere with a 5-star food hygiene rating. Because what I don't want to be doing is running to the toilet every 10 minutes because we've got some dodgy kebabs at lunchtime.
You should go do some work in India then.
Oh God, yeah. Well, I think we're shooting abroad at the start of next year, actually. Yeah. And even then, when we're shooting abroad, I will not drink the tap water. If I was on holiday, I would, but for work, no. Because if I get sick, the headache of me getting sick is such a pain, because the job can't carry on.
Yeah.
And then it's the insurance, and then it's the legal team, and then it's all these things. And it sounds like I'm being like overly dramatic about it, but I'm like, I don't have to deal with that. Let's just get the job done, get paid, and get out of there. Like, that's the dream scenario thing. But yeah, maybe I'm a bit of a diva sometimes. It's I don't think dried mango is too much to ask for. I think 48 cans with the ring pulls turned at right angles might have been a bit of a dick move.
It depends how much they want the photos.
Yeah. And I think the industry is changing a lot now as well. Like, I was charging more money a few years ago than I am now. And I was making more profit on a job because of the price of everything than I am now. and I was being treated better a few years ago than I am now. There's definitely a shift in the dynamic of like the respect a photographer gets today is not the same as it was in 2019.
You're getting old.
There's that as well. Yeah. I realised, but back in my day, but no, back in 2019, you were still treated, and this sounds probably very narcissistic, like a bit of a rock star. And now you're the person who's come to fix the problem, which is a big shift. And I definitely raged against it for a little bit. And I was definitely, and then I was like, hang on a second, you're still getting paid stupid money to take a photograph. Like, just shut up and do the job. Yeah.
I know, but this is the thing. You know, people are like, you know, you would, and obviously, I think from a hobbyist, you know, from this side of the table again, you know, for a lot of people, the idea of taking pictures for money, is kind of cool, and it is cool. It is
cool. Right?
I remember the first time I saw my like a byline. You go, holy shit, man, this is awesome, right? And you know, so there is a tendency to say, oh, but I would do the wedding, or not, maybe wedding's a bad example, but if someone were paying me to take pictures, that would be the dream. That'd be the dream. And at the end of the day, it is actually a job.
Yep.
Right. And yes, it's doing something that is enjoyable, but it is also a job.
Yeah.
You can't just come in. Like, I would have days going into the studio where I was in a bad mood or something, right? And when somebody walks through the door, I have to put my stage face on.
Yeah.
Dr. Footlights has to sort of come to the table, right? Be, hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
And also, and I'm going to use a word creative here with a caveat, is that it had to be creative on demand.
Yes.
Now my my setup, because of the nature of what I did, it followed a system, but each person is different. You need to have a bit of creativity for each one, and I think that's something that a lot of people possibly don't understand. Like, you can be somebody who takes photographs for fun and for enjoyment and pleasure, but if you don't feel like it,
don't have to do it.
So on.
Yeah.
Right. But if you have a couple of off days, you're just like, can't be bothered. You can't just go through the motions of taking a picture.
No. And I mean, like, both mentally, but also like I had pneumonia on a shoot once, and like my assistant just carried the job for me. But I had to be there, and I had to be sprightly. I could literally hear fluid bubbling in my lungs, and I went straight to hospital after the job. But you just got to be there, and you've got to do a good job, and you've got to put on a good, good show. And I think this is one of the things, again, that photographers don't think of, and it'll be as much in your industry as it is in mine. For you, it's the subject matter. For me, it's the creative director. They've got to have a good time.
Oh God, yeah.
Like, more than they expect the images to be good. That's a given.
Yeah.
It's, can you make the images good and make sure they have the best day of their life, because they'll want to work with you again because it was a great day out.
With the family pictures, Mum usually has quite a say in what gets purchased. But so long as you pay attention to their kids, then you're in.
Yeah.
Make the kids feel comfortable. So long as the kids have a good time, the parents will put up a certain amount, because the parents generally are like, I don't really want to have my picture taken. But so long as you pay attention to the kids, make the kids feel special, get involved with them, get engaged with them, then they're generally okay. When I've had problems in the past, it's when Mum has been she's been one of these kind of mums who comes in and says to the child, Scott, go and smile for the man. If you don't smile for the man, I'm going to thump you.
Yeah.
It's kind of that sort of thing. And often that's where you, again, a bit of experience comes in, and I can say, look, Jennifer, whatever, what we're going to do, I think Scott's a little bit anxious. Okay. So I tell you, if you just sit over the couch on there for a minute, right, I'll have a chat with him. I'll talk him around the kind of stuff like that. And then you're kind of diffusing the situation.
Yeah.
And you get much better photographs, because it's nothing worse than kids who've got that kind of, I call it a coat hanger smile.
Yeah.
So they've had coat hanger jammed in their mouth, and it just looks fake and horrible and nasty. But yeah, you got to look after parents. But that's, you know, again, it's
that's being a professional.
That's also when, if you know the technical stuff, if you've got it down cold, you're not thinking about it the whole time.
Oh, it's rare that on a job you have to think about unless something breaks and you're trying to fix it. It's rare that you have to go, let me think about the technical here. It's normally like, right, my client is getting it in the neck from their client because they don't know what they want.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm like, right, I would go to the client and go, look, they don't know what they want. I know what you want. They're going to want options. Let's do this. And they can have all of it. We're not going to charge you any extra. And they're like, oh, thank you so much. And like that, that's the repeat booking instantly.
Yeah.
Say like you make the kids happy, like, you know, or, you know.
Oh, I've lost count the number of kids who come in who are like, oh my God, I don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
And you do stupid, silly things.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like a wireless trigger. So you get a kid who's like kind of 3 or 4 or 5 and is very nervous about this because
it's intimidating.
That's a big light and stuff like
that.
And you say, look, I'm going to teach you a magic trick. And you go up and you take the remote trigger off the camera and you put it in your pocket. And you say, right, I want you to do this. And you get to thump, because I've got a magic trick in my hand.
Yeah.
And you rub it into their hand. You say, like, I'm giving you the power now. And I want you to throw the power at that light.
I want the power.
Then,
not on the microphone.
And,
off.
And, you know, and then, of course, you pop it.
Yeah.
And the kids think this is hilarious. And then they do it again. You go, it doesn't work now. Oh, because I haven't put.
Yeah.
And so you do these kind of little things, and it makes parents. And you know, when you're not having to worry about the technical side of things. Hello.
He's desperate to get on the podcast.
He is. This is why I've kind of like never worked with children and animals. So when you have the animals.
They are a nuisance.
It's totally. So, you know, again, you know, when I talk to people, it's like the technical's not what's holding you back.
No, I've maybe once or twice found someone where it's like, your technical skills lacking. It's rare that that's the issue. But yeah, you know, I mean, what would I guess we want like an ending piece of advice for photographers. What would your just put you right on the spot? I should have let you think about this beforehand. What would your biggest piece of advice be for budding photographers, be it hobbyists who have no intention of being pro, people like, for any photographer out there, regardless of your aim in photography, what's your best bit of advice? Now, I can either edit this to make it seem like he's thinking for ages or cut it really short.
No one's going to die.
Yeah.
If you take a bad photo, so what?
Yeah.
Take a picture you're not happy with. So what? In the grand scheme of things, it matters not a drop. Rather take the picture and try and learn from it.
Yep.
But if you don't take the picture, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah, that's very good advice. Actually, it's one of the things I always tell my girlfriend when she comes back and goes, what the hell have you done? I went, but did anyone die?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I think that's great. Like, I think it's very easy to think we do a serious job when really, I mean, we just have a bit of fun and get paid for the privilege.
Yeah.
Like, don't take it too seriously.
Absolutely. No, we don't take it serious. And that is the thing. You know, ultimately, take the pictures.
Yeah.
Enjoy what you get. If you get a winner, get a chicken dinner.
Yeah. If not, at least enjoy the process.
If not, then you just suck.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you very much.
That was my pleasure, Scott. Thank you ever so much for having me. And yes, and the mystery guest was not really a mystery.
Not so much of a mystery. He's always present. Yes, he's always making himself known.
Anyway, well, I hope your viewers enjoy it. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Cool.